Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as we get a couple things set up here, um, greetings. Welcome to this webinar. It's going to be a really, really cool webinar because this is one of my favorite subjects to talk about, and has when anything having to do with team development, unity, alignment, getting your team moving in the same direction. That's something of a mystery to many, many people. And many business owners start out and it's really challenging for their business to grow because they don't have some of the key knowledge, key information to take the key steps that help their business to really prosper and their team in to prosper. And as I talked about last week, I went over the subject of hiring, did kind of a comprehensive overview of all the steps necessary. Well, not just an overview. I actually took kind of like a deep dive into the hiring process and really went through what you need to do in order to hire rockstar team members. And um, so many times we don't believe that we can hire rockstar team members. And that belief gets in so many leaders' way. And so as you work through the process of hiring, the first thing you have to remember is that there is always, always, and at all times, the opportunity in the marketplace for you to hire a rockstar team member. It may not be the way you think or the way you know how, but it's always possible. And so as we go through, as I talk about the subject of hiring altogether, I'm thinking of there's so many thoughts that are going in the back of my mind about sorry, let me silence some of these messages here in the background about the different steps involved in hiring. And when you go through the different steps, there are a lot of things that make it that if you don't do them well as a leader, as a owner, as an entrepreneur, you stunt your ability to onboard and to have long-term greatness manifested in each of your team members. And so many great team members that could have been awesome on a team, they don't make it because we at many times in the process don't do our job as leaders of our organizations, simply because we don't know. And you don't know what you don't know, which is one of the reasons that I'm actually doing this video today, because I'm passionate about business and entrepreneurship and making sure help a small business grow and have the biggest possible advantage, because I believe in small businesses and I believe in the mission and just kind of the lifestyle, the desire behind the small business person who is working to grow and prosper in their market. And it's part of my life vision to work through and help companies grow and help people who want to create a better outcome, a better future for their lives, their families, and their business to actually prosper over time. And as I've been blessed in that very same way, I've had been in entrepreneurship for over 15 years now and worked from going to complete zero, absolutely zero, to multi-million-dollar company in 10 years. And prior to that, I worked in another family company, and it was so struggling and so had so many challenges inside of the company itself that I worked for the next 2 years, almost getting paid nothing, just to get it up and off the ground. And we got it up off the ground, and it started working, and things started clicking. And then I transitioned to running my own company, which is the Taika Translations. A lot of times you'll see videos on my channel come out that have to do with translation, because I own a translation company. So throughout that journey of growing and learning entrepreneurship and learning all the different facets of it, I learned I did a lot of trial and error and a lot of really painful mistakes. And through that, there came a lot of great practices, new lessons, and things that I said, I will never do this again. And I never did it again because it was painful and it was very, very bad. The outcomes were very, very bad. So what I'm about to teach you today and to talk to you about is one of those very lessons. Because so many people go through their hiring process and they have their interviews, and even if you did all your interviews really well, you think you're done. And now, okay, now I got my team member in place. Now they're in my organization. Now they just need to get to work and get stuff done. They're a good team member. They're going to just rock it right off the bat without any further integration. I did the hiring. We answered all the questions. We checked all the boxes. We did a personality test. We even went so far as to get a personal budget to make sure what we're paying them was what they can live on. And now they just need to come to my office each day and do work. And that is a temptation, especially after you spent so many hours, if you've done hiring right, the initial part of hiring right. That is a temptation. But if you go through this next part and do it incredibly well, the 90-day probation period, you will find that it is as important as the interview process itself, if not more. And so what I'm talking about today is, and I really want to reinforce this point, that your hiring process is not done until your team member has made it through the 90-day probation period. And what are you talking about? Why? Because the number one thing you're trying to do is to make sure you stop making bad hires. If you could stop making bad hires and hire people that stay with your company long term, you will increase revenue, you will increase your client experience, you will reduce your frustration, and you will sleep better at night by far, because you actually have people in your organization who care and bring it each and every day, and they follow your example, good or bad sometimes, and they follow your example and they bring it every single day. Another reason is because soon after hiring, leaders don't experience strong alignment, and the reason is they're not aligned. And the 90-day probation period helps you fix that, and that's why it's so key. Before any team member has even been there 3 months, you see or experience things that you know or you're worried about that will prevent them from succeeding in their role, and you're not sure when to address it and what to do about it. We're going to talk about that all as we work through the slides today. So many team members are frustrated, and they should never be frustrated in this stage. When a team member comes to your organization, now remember what we're talking about. Just think about the process. You've just gone through this really intense hiring process, and now they're coming into your company, but there's the first 90 days. In this first 90 days in your organization, your team member should be on cloud 9. They should love coming to work each day. It should be challenging, but at the same time, they should not be frustrated with their new team. They should have all the tools they need, and they should not feel any kind of frustration about the organization, because they actually fit. Okay, so if you're not in alignment and you haven't created that alignment as you started your work through building your team into your organization, your team member into your organization, this first 90 days, you're going to lose that momentum. And that honeymoon period, that first 90-day honeymoon period for the team member is so critical, and it's so critical that you get it right, which is why I said, okay, you go through the hiring process, but this 90-day probation period, if you don't get it right, it can kill everything. So we have to get this part right, and that's why we're going to talk about it today. And I know you've got the excuses, because I had the excuses. I wrote down these excuses because these were my excuses. I have so much other freaking work to do. I have time to deal with this. I have other more important work to do, when the truth is you don't realize it, but you don't. Many companies, my company needs me to focus on these critical functions. We're on fire over here. I got a team member in. They're breathing and sucking wind. Now let him get up. Just let him go do work. Just do work. It doesn't work that way. People don't work that way. And honestly, it's not respectful to treat them that way. Every hire, some people believe that every hire is just a hit or a miss. So why do we even waste so much time on it? It's going to be like a 50% turnover in my company this year. So why even waste time on it? I've got team members who've worked with me. My company is 10 years old, and they've been here 10 years. Okay, it's 11 years old this year, and they've been here 10 years. And they're amazing. And they invest in our organization each and every day. And it's awesome. And they're rock stars. And I'm proud of them. and we've had a lot of good times and bad times together, but they've been here a long time because we do this well. We got good at it. Some people say I'm not good at hiring, so my excuse is I just won't do this part of it really well, and that's a mistake. And another excuse is that I just can't handle the confrontation. And I've got news for you. If you can't handle confrontation and you own a company or you're a business leader, either you need to hire somebody who can handle the confrontation and learn to handle the confrontation, or get out of business because you're going to have to deal with confrontation early and often, pretty much daily, at least weekly. So you're going to have to deal with it. And I say this with a compassionate heart because I was conflict averse at first. A lot of people don't think I am because I come across in a very bold, in your face manner. But yeah, I was very conflict averse at first. But when I learned how good it was for our organization and how much it helped when I dealt with it properly, I learned to do it much better. So I would encourage you, don't let these excuses be your excuses. I know them. I embodied them, work through them. So this training will hopefully help you get through some of that. People don't realize how much work it takes to build high performance teams that actually cares. If that is you, I hope during this video today that you have a couple aha moments, a couple moments where you're like, oh man, I didn't know that, or man, I could actually take and use that piece, or man, I'm going to add this to my process. Because building a team that actually cares takes a ton of work. And if you get some nuggets from this and it can apply them, make sure you come back and let us know about it, because that would mean the world to us to see this material, see this information being brought to life in the hearts and minds and the operations of those people who are listening and watching the content that we're putting out. So if you don't hire well, you will be rehiring or you'll go to business. And that will cost you time, money, and a ton of headaches and a lot of lost revenue. So getting hiring right is absolutely critical. I hope that I'm making this point very strongly. The point is not to prolong the hiring. The point is to make sure that you're making as few mistakes with the hires that you've got coming in your doors as possible. And to make sure when you get a good hire that you don't fail them in the first 90 days and stunt their growth or cause them some kind of disdain that eventually ends in separation because you didn't do your job well at the very beginning, and then carry that forward. So what do we do in the time between interview and the whole interview process and the long-term success of a team member? We're going to go into that in just a moment. If you would please like and subscribe to this video, share it with a friend. If you know somebody who is a business owner who has a team and who is working through hiring and who's complained as to like, man, it's so hard to get team members onboarded, please like and subscribe and share this video with them. Let them know that there are ways to work through that, and there are people who can resonate with that. I'm one of them, and they can help work through the process of integrating team members successfully into the organization and keeping away from those things that are going to kill the progress and kill the life, the successful onboarding and really engaging team members coming into their organization. So as we get into it, again, please like, subscribe, and please also leave a comment in any of the videos that you find helpful. Let us know why it was helpful. That would be incredibly helpful to us. And then we will make more content around that subject. If there's something that you'd like to know more about, or something that you feel like you could really use help with, please just let us know what that subject is, and I will address it specifically, or a specific question that you may have. I will go over that in the video. So there was a question, and I'm going to real quick ask Karina. Karina, remember there was a question that we wanted to get put up on that we wanted to answer in this webinar. I don't know if you can find that right now, but maybe you can find that and post it, and then I will stop and answer that question as we continue through the content this morning. All right, guys. So are you ready? All right, guys. Let's go. The 90-day probation rules. They can leave at any time with little notice. And guys, I'm probably going to speed up my talking here because when I am passionate about something and when I get excited about it, I speed it up a little bit. If I need to slow down, let me know. All right. So if they come into your organization and they're there on day one. You need to set the rules for the 90-day probation period. One is they can leave at any time with little notice, and you can let them go at any time with little notice. You're not obligated for a long-term commitment at this point, and you have an agreement that allows both parties to part ways for any reason that does not work well for either of you. And so you make this clear on the very first day as they come in the door. Not as they come in the door, obviously you want to sit them down. This should be in a meeting or some kind of small conference, something like that, or maybe a conference with multiple team members that are coming in, to your company that day. So like if you're onboarding in batches, just make sure that these rules are clearly discussed or clearly disseminated to the team as they come into your organization. Then let them know they are joining the team, and they must understand that at the 90-day mark, full commitment to every aspect of the work and the company is absolutely mandatory. Not half, not 25%, not 75%, full commitment. And you're going to be looking for full commitment as your leader, as their leader, as you work through the process of onboarding them and working through the 90-day probationary period. So if they're going to be here, they must act like us. They must act like a we. They must be part of us. We do things this way. We care. We come to work on time. We do our work before it's due. We make sure we communicate kindly. We treat our team members fairly. We respect one another. We show up when we say we're going to show up with our team members, and if we agree to a meeting, we do what we need our organization and team to do. And so when you come into the organization, you may have come in as I or a person of individual, but you are leaving as a we. We are all together one. Now we come into this organization. The commitment to why we do what we do is absolutely mandatory by the end of this 90-day period. And if you don't like it, if you hate it, if you're like, oh my gosh, that's just all for capitalistic material gain, you can leave. It's fine. And I think it's very important for you as a leader to understand that they might need to leave, and you need to let them go, because you don't want somebody staying there who will not believe in the reason why you do the work. All right, this is clearly communicated on the very first day at the beginning of the day. Everything revolves around clarity for success of the new role. So let's start building the clarity, and you start the first day, the first meeting. And so you're going to be, if you're not doing the onboarding yourself, you're assigning a leader to make sure they're doing the onboarding so that they can take these team members forward. So you, very specifically, as the owner or entrepreneurial leader of your organization, you come into the meeting and greet them all and ask them how they're doing. And you say, all right, guys, here's a few ground rules. This is welcome to our company. This is the 90-day probationary period. We're so excited that you made it through the interview process. I know it's tough. Wasn't it tough, guys? Yeah, it was tough. All right, so now these are some ground rules for going forwards, and this is what we're going to be looking for. And here's the leader that is going to be training you over these or helping you to integrate or what have you. Here's the leaders of your teams and so on and so forth. And you set all that out in the very first meeting there. All right, so now we start building clarity. And how do we do that? Before I get into this, Karina just posted me the note. Help me from getting fooled on how they present themselves in their interviews, and that's not a good indicator, predictor for how they'll be as an employee. And I think that's such a key question, because in the last interview, in the last webinar, I talked very extensively about how to make sure that you hire incredibly well, hiring rockstar team members. And in that webinar, I went over the interview process. And so if you're trying to make sure that you're not getting fooled about how they present themselves in the interview, there's a couple really important things that you do. First of all, you need to have multiple interviews. This is really important. So many entrepreneurs out there, they hire after having one or two interviews. I mean, if you have one interview with 5 candidates and you just pick the one you best like, that is a terrible way, and you will get fooled. And you will be hiring again, because anybody can fool somebody for 5 interviews. Yeah, literally, I just said 5 interviews. So am I saying that you need 5 interviews with one candidate? I'm saying you need a minimum of 5 interviews, minimum of 6 interviews with a single candidate. and and it's going to be 6 to 12. And you're like, oh my gosh, how is that even possible? You're going to have to do at least 6 to 12 interviews. So throughout the interview process, you're building a relationship and you're asking key questions and you're looking for red flags. You're looking for any um, uh, you're building the conversation with them, and basically essentially building a micro relationship with this person to really find out who they are, because in order to work with them long term, you're going to have to find out who they are. And if you don't care enough to find out who they are, really understand what makes them tick, um, then you need to assign somebody else to do your interviews. Now if you're a solo entrepreneur, you're just going to have to learn how to find out what makes people tick and how to become better at conversating. So you need to have the interviews, and then hopefully, now in this case, I'm just going to assume this person has a team of 2 other team members. So he's an entrepreneur with 2 other team members, and so he and his 2 other team members should all be involved in the interview process. So many leaders think that it's their sole responsibility to bring any new team members into their team, and that's just not the case. You should all be involved. And so when you're doing the interviews, one of the ways that you can keep yourself from getting fooled is by having all the team members in your team, if you're a tiny team, interview the new candidate, because they make up such a big percentage of your team. That's not a problem. It's definitely well worth the investment. So that means not only you as the owner do the interviews, but you have multiple other team members do the interviews, because some personality types are easier to fool some specific personality types, and that's why and some personality types are harder to be, they're not as, they don't as easily fool other personality types. And so when you have an interview with a candidate and you have 2 other team members have the interview with the candidate, afterwards you will go and talk to your 2 team members who you already have about the candidates they interviewed, and talk about your findings. And there you should have a predetermined set of questions that all of you are going to select from to ask as you go through the interviews. And when somebody finds something that they're not really comfortable with, you need to dig in. You need to sit down at your little team table. You have yourself and your other 2 team members, and you need to write down, okay, here's the thing that we're worried about. Let's ask 5 questions about this in the next interview. And then all 3 of you ask some variation of those 5 questions in the next interview, getting detailed and getting very specific. And if you're afraid of getting specific and detailed, well, then if you're going to be hiring, that's one of the things that you're going to have to learn. Be very specific, very detailed, and to really understand the responses of the person. In addition to this, and this is life-saving in the hiring process, add a spousal interview where you interview the team member and their spouse, and if they've made it through, I would say 6 to 8 interviews, and you're pretty serious about hiring them, take you and your spouse and them and their spouse out to dinner. Tell their spouse about the values of the company and the role, and ask their spouse if it's a good fit. And then on the drive back home, don't offer them the job yet. On the drive back home, ask your spouse, because your spouse knows you and your organization probably better than anyone. How did you feel about that candidate? And if your spouse says, I just didn't feel good about that candidate, that's enough reason to call it off. And you need to ask your spouse, do you think that I should call this off? Do you think that they would be a good hire? Or do you think that I should dig in here or just completely call it off? And if they say they think you should completely call it off, call it off. Go to the next hire, continue the process. And that's how you keep from getting fooled as you're working through having your interviews. All right, back to the content that we're working on today. Okay, so step number 1, what do we do when we're bringing the team members in and we're launching them into the 90-day probation period? All right, we do a values dump and immersion into the company culture. Complete immersion. And how do we do this? And depending on how many values you have, hold 3 or 4 meetings about your values and company during the first 2 weeks. So in the first weeks, you will have at least 2 meetings specifically about the values of your organization. In this meeting, your primary goal is to have comprehensive communication and interactive discussion with the team member about why you do the work you do. So many companies don't do this and they trip themselves, and it is so painful to watch. You explain how everyone in your company behaves and what they should expect from all the team members in your company. Now, a lot of times as I'm talking to a new team member, and we're talking, and I do this. I actually do this values discussion. I hold this, and I've led it for years for the team members that come into our organization. And so, as I bring team members into our organization, I say this: these are the things that are expected of you. You're expected actually to come in and to check into your team chat 3 minutes before your shift starts. 3 minutes before your shift starts, and if you don't, your team's going to wonder where you are, because all of the rest of your team, they're checking in 3 minutes before their shift starts to make sure that they're ready to rock as soon as the work gets started. And if you're the only one who does it, that message is going to be received very, very badly by the rest of your team, and they're going to wonder why the world you're so special. What makes you different? And why don't you have to show up on time? And then you're going to start a very negative vibe about your coming to work late on your very first initiation into the team. So we, in our organization, we sign in 3 minutes before the shift starts. That's what we do. And if you don't do that, you're letting your team down, and you're creating a bad reputation for yourself here. So do that. When you get to work, 3 minutes before the top of the hour, I'm in. All right, let's rock. So you know that they're there, that they're ready to rock, and you are ready to, and you're ready to be engaged in the work that we're doing. I just saw that question pop up. I'll look at it in just a minute. So setting expectations you set the expectations for how their team will act and how the team will respond. Set the expectations for how they are expected to behave, just like I mentioned, and you ensure that no one joins the team who shouldn't be there. I want to emphasize this point that the hiring process does not end until the 90-day process, the 90-day probationary launch is done. When the 90-day probationary launch is done, then your hire is complete. And that will help many of you to just kind of get your brain around the fact that you're still trying to kick out and weed out anyone that does not belong in your organization. Okay? You cannot expect to be able to hire somebody fluidly all the way to the end without them being very well integrated. And they can't integrate unless they comprehensively understand every aspect behind what you're doing and why you're doing it. So ensuring that no one joins this team who shouldn't be there is your primary concern as you work through this. You want them to be out before the 90-day period, if at all possible. But because they made it through the interview period, it's likely they're going to continue. But if at all possible, you want them to get out of your organization before the 90-day period ends, and this will help you reduce so many wrong hires. And this period of time is going to be so critical for you in building the relationship and just seeing all the real sides of the team members who you're interviewing and trying to bring into the organization to actually see if they're a good fit. All right, now I'm going to go to a quick question before I move into step number 2. Why employees might underperform after they're hired and past the 90-day period. Why would they do that? And what would be the reasons, and what would be some of the reasons and solutions? Why would employees underperform after they were hired and after they passed the 90-day probation period? What would be the reason, and what are some solutions for that? Okay. Well, if they've passed the 90-day probation period and they still underperform, and if they passed the 90-day probation period, this is very much tending towards inclining to a leadership problem. The leadership did not weed out the person if they shouldn't be there. And if they're not performing, they're not doing their job to do the one-on-one conversations with them that's going to cause them the long-term success. So in the end of this webinar, I mentioned when they move into the long-term success. So that's a whole process in and of itself. So the 90-day period is you making sure that they're a right fit. So if they're the right fit in the right seat with ready to latch onto your values, then it's your job as a leader to do better, clarifying their role, clarifying what they're supposed to be doing, and then helping them to succeed. And if they are not able to do it after that, if they've managed to fool everyone and then they continue to underperform, and if there are no actual other problems, like they've gone through a divorce, or they're having financial struggles, or their parent died, or their pet that they loved for 15 years died, and such things. And believe me, I've seen all of those things happen, and they definitely do impact people's in the work, and that's just part of living and part of working. But if barring any of that stuff, if they just come to work and don't do well, then it's a leadership problem. And it's a problem for uncomfortable conversations and leaders being better at leading, which those are all for another webinar. All right, so question from Karina. She said, can you elaborate a bit more on how you measure success during the 90-day period? How you measure success during the 90-day period. So if I'm measuring the success, I'm looking for a few things. I'm looking for performance in their role. I'm looking for buy-in to what I'm talking about, to what I'm explaining to them. I'm looking for passion. And these are all difficult to measure. I'm looking for them demonstrating the values that we've told them that we embody and that we value deeply as a team. I'm looking for them to show up and check into their team on time. I'm looking for, because as the executive leader of our organization, now I have other leaders that are working through helping to onboard the team members at this stage. So I, as the executive of our organization, go in to talk to their leader and say, all right, how is that team member doing? How is this new hire? How are they integrating? How are they doing their work? Do they seem to be understanding our processes? Are they getting all of their tasks done on time? Are they bought into the values? Do they believe what we believe? Do you think that you can see they're connected there? Do you think that there's some kind of disconnect between or some kind of negative mentality towards any of the things that we do, or the practice, or the values that we have? And so it's a little bit, there's no concrete, like you put these, like you measure, okay, they showed up 7 days on time and 1 day not. That's not what I'm measuring. I'm measuring more than anything, are they fired up? Are they excited? Are they bought in? Are they and as a result of that, the tasks are getting done. They're showing up on time. They're creatively thinking about how to contribute. They're reading the books, and they're talking about the material that we've been giving them, and they're really thinking about how they can be a problem solver and contributor. And so all of that is what I'm looking for in that 90-day probationary period, because this is when they're integrating. They have their biggest high as they experience the work coming to an organization that really has true values and a great team. And then as they get further and further into it, there's going to start to creatively problem solve and look for ways to be incredible contributors. So this is how I measure the success of that. And I know that's not incredibly perfectly crystal clear on how to understand if you should kick the team member out or keep them on. But if you do this well and you practice, you will begin to get a really good feel about how the team member, if the team member is going to integrate well and they're going to succeed long term. So I would say that that's my best answer that I can give at this time on how to measure whether or not they made it. And I'll talk a little bit more about this a little bit further in this, but that's where I'm going to leave this one for right now. All right, so step 2, some notes that are about this first section that you need to know. Anything that you talk about regarding your values and regarding how we behave as a team and what you say about why your company exists, it better be true. Don't tell them a wish list of what you would like to be true. about your organization? Your team that you currently have should already embody the values that you're saying. Don't tell these people that, oh, we value um, integrity, discipline, we're loyal, have all this kind of buzzwords that have a predetermined meaning. You need to define your values in real terms that mean stuff to you. You need to find the things that mean stuff to you in real ways. Like there's a value that we have, and it's called the momentum theorem. And the momentum theorem is about focused intensity over time and multiplying that by God. I got this from Dave Ramsey. I listened to it. I was like, oh my gosh, that is the best thing ever. So I love that, and I believe it deeply. And I was like, man, that so much explains this and this and this about what I deeply value in life. So I really, this is going to be part of the value of our organization. And it actually has played out to be very, very true over many years. So we know it's a good value. It actually is part of who we are. So it means focused intensity. You focus really hard on something over time, and you multiply that by the power of God in prayer, and it makes unstoppable momentum in your organization in the different areas. And so when I say that, and I talk about to the team, and I say, all right, so this is the value, and here's some stories about how that happened. This is what it looks like in action. This is where we started. This is all the stuff that we did. And this is how God stepped in, because we didn't do that. We didn't realize that was a possibility. And the market crashed at this time, but that actually worked out 6 months later to be a good thing, because we got this, and this client through there, because some of our other competitors went out of business because they operate on debt. We don't operate on debt. So that's another value for us. But anyways, and we were able to get that such and such a client. And then 12 months later, we had this incredible momentum because God was working the whole time, and we were just working our butts off trying to figure out how we were going to make ends meet. And then we made it, and we barely got through that low time by the skin of our teeth, but we were creative. We were investing. We were contributing. We were showing it each and every day. We were giving it our best. And then over time, multiply that by God's blessings and grace and safety, and just God doing something that we didn't realize that he was going to do. It creates incredible momentum. And then we have this forward moving engine that's throwing off cash, that's creating revenue. And we just, and we can say, yeah, we did part of that, but some of that feels like, it just kind of happened. And that whole phenomenon, we say, is a momentum theorem, that God stepped in and did a job that we couldn't do, but he just amplified our efforts in an area. And so that's how you can use a real story and past experience to demonstrate the value. Now, I want to say, I mentioned this, real stories and past experiences. You should have good war stories of how you won in the past, but you should have recent examples about your values in action. A recent example that a situation in your organization where you can point out, hey, this value, this team made this value come to life right here last week, 2 weeks ago. This right here is how this value came to life. And this is a demonstration of that, because your team members who are sitting in that onboarding meeting and they're listening to the values, they're like, oh, they don't just have that thing on the wall, like that if you've walked in some of these offices and you see on the wall integrity, and you see an eagle flying or something in this, and it's like this big bold statement, and you're like, man, and then you go to the counter and you deal with the person and you feel no sense of deep integrity from this person. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm not sure if these guys are going to rob me or they're going to serve me. And you don't feel that, but it's posted on their wall, integrity and service before self, or super service. And you're like, this, I did not feel served at all when I went to that business, or when I interface with that company. But it's on their wall. These are our core values. That does absolutely nothing for your organization. It would be better not to post any of your values on the walls, but that they existed in real life in your hearts and minds of your team and in the daily activities. So make sure you bring recent and past experience that demonstrate the value and the culture being lived out and why it matters. This happens in the first 90 days. You're like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. Make sure they understand that this is a team effort, and look for a genuine acknowledgement and buy-in. And this kind of goes into that, how do we measure it? You're looking for this, your relational intelligence as you're dealing with these people in the conversations, in the onboarding process, is part of how you're going to understand if they're a good fit. Are they buying in? Do they really believe this? Or are they just sitting there to listen to you so they can go home early? All right, step two, policies and procedures alignment. It's the most tactical of all the sections, but it's very important to mention. Clearly explain their work schedule and check-in times. Outline required meetings. Explain the pay and benefits, ensure they have all the necessary tools and technology to begin their work. If somebody doesn't have the tools to do their work really well, and they don't have good tools, they're going to do their work poorly, and it's going to be your fault. And you're going to wonder why they didn't get their work done or didn't do it well. Make sure they have good tools. Make sure they have everything that they need in this stage. And this is like day 2 or 3 of the whole process. If they're already learning about what they're doing, you need to be making sure that on the day they sit down at their new workstation, whether that's virtual or whether it's at your office, they are ready to rock and they have everything that they need to move forwards. Now, some positions are new, and you might learn about new technology along the way. We're always learning. We're always integrating new technology and new things into our organization. That's part of the whole process. But in this stage, you make sure, darn sure, they have absolutely everything they need to move forward doing really well. And so this is the tactical step where you just kind of make sure that everything is understood, that they have a very clear plan for what you expect from them. This should be written down. The meetings should be written down. The calendars should be shared. The email logins, the keys, the security protocols, all of these should be explained, and the trainer should provide an overview of their training schedule that they'll be expected to follow as they initiate their training. And at this point, you've already assigned their leader because you did that in step number 1 when you were talking about the values and introducing them to your organization. And remember, that happens at least 4 times in the first 2 weeks that they're working in your team, on your team. A temptation for a lot of new business owners is to change or adapt the routines of your organization for a new team member because you're like, oh my gosh, this team member is so awesome, and I finally got a hire. Now I need to adapt how we operate a little bit. Don't do that. Why? I did that, and I found out very soon we had a zoo schedule. You have crazy schedule, and if you have crazy schedule, you're trying to please everyone, and what you'll end up doing is pleasing no one because everyone is frustrated. If the team member is a good hire, if you did a good job hiring, you brought someone who already fits your company's needs without any major operational adjustments. Okay? They have to come onto the job, come onto your work, and fit the schedule, all the meetings, including all the meeting schedules, all the things that are already working in place. If they're a higher level team member, they come in at a higher level, they have to make sure that they're showing up at their leader meetings, that they're leader trainings, they're learning how to do their one-on-ones, and they're ready to do their one-on-one trainings, and then they're making sure that they get those scheduled with their lower level team members. If they're coming off the bottom level, they're learning. They have a team that they're working with. I have a company that has 2 shifts, and they have a morning shift and an evening shift. And so when we hire team members for that shift, it's for that specific shift. And they have to come on and be there and ready to rock at that specific shift at that specific time. And if anything about them does not fit with that schedule and they kind of would like to do this and that way, they don't fit. They don't work. They don't get to stay here. They have to integrate perfectly into that position or that role that your company needs them to fill, or you have to go further and search. And I know that's a little painful to hear because so many people get to this stage and like, well, that doesn't really work because I have a soccer practice and I need to drop my kids off at 2 every Thursday. And so you're gonna have to change the leadership meeting because I'm not gonna be able to be there. And like, oh, I'm sorry. Looks like that's not something we're willing to do. This is the system that we've got in place, and if you can't meet that requirement, we're going to, this isn't going to work. And either they'll boom quickly change. Oh, I can adjust my schedule for that. We can move that to a different day. And so, oh, that would be so helpful. Thank you. And then actually, you didn't even do anything for them. You just let them know what the schedule was. They decided whether or not they wanted to stay in the company. And this is really important for leaders. And I know everybody wants to kind of help people out and make people's lives a little easier. But once you start doing this, you'll do it for this person and not for that person. And then that person will feel uncared for or something that's unfair. And you'll start creating these dissonances in your schedule and in your organization that you do not need. And you'll start looking a little bit like a hypocrite, which anytime you do that or anything you do does that, it's really bad for the morale of your organization. So don't change company routines simply because you're bringing on a new team member and their life schedule is a little different. They either fit with your schedule or your company, or they're not a good fit. And if you find this at this stage, even though you've made it a long way through, even though they seem like a really great person and they're not willing to change their life to make sure that they work for your organization, they're out. And you find that out during this stage. And so it's a very important step in the process. And that's why I mentioned it as step number 2, this very tactical, here's everything we do and how we do it. And now, you give the team member an opportunity to kind of align with that and fully, completely, comprehensively understand and dig in and make this part of their new life's routine, or not be there. And if they ask for adjustments, it's pretty much a hard no most of the time in this case. In this section, there are only some instances when maybe you have a virtual team member or a part-time team member where there's flexibility. Now, if it's in the best interest of your company to be flexible and the team member has come into your organization with that understanding, then that flexibility is worked out here and talked about, but you do not change any of your major operational operating standards. Okay, so just don't make that mistake. Don't think that this person is awesome and this is the only person since I've spent so much time on them, now I need to adapt my organization to them. Do not do that, because you're going to hire 10 more people. And if you continue adapting for each 10 others, then you're going to have a zoo schedule. And if you don't adapt for 2 or 3 of the others, they're going to look back and say, hey, you didn't adapt for us, but you adapted for them. That's unfair. And it is unfair. So I would agree. So don't do that. You're just going to create problems for yourself and for your team members, and you're going to trip them up. So step 2, policies and procedures alignment. If you have any questions around this, drop them in the chat. I have a question right here. It says, how can we communicate our business core principles and establish strict guidelines for new employees while still maintaining a supportive environment? I think if your organization actually has strong core principles, and they really do mean something, then when you have to be strict about the thing, people will understand why. And that, because you're being genuine and you're holding that standard, when they came into your organization and they said, we think these things are true about us. I gave you the example. We check in, 3 minutes before our team starts, and then your team member, you go to your team member and you're like, hey, you checked in 5 minutes after the shift started. What happened? Because we in our organization, our value is that we check in 3 minutes before. What's going on here? Right? How can I help you to make sure that you're able to adapt? Then it doesn't come across so strict and unsupportive. It doesn't come across, and it's not. It's genuinely not, because you're in perfect alignment with what you said. We have this integrity thing where we are truthful to one another. We have this one of our values in our organization is demonstrate the golden rule. We live out the golden rule. So we had a meeting and we decided on these objectives, these action steps. Team member A, B, and C. All right, you guys are assigned these things, these exact tasks. Next week when we come back to this meeting, those are all going to be done. Okay, and we know that they can all be done in a week, and there's no extenuating circumstances, so this should be a realistic expectation. Great. We come back to the meeting next week, and team members B and C, they did their tasks, and team member A did not. And you look at that and like, we agreed that you were going to get this done. What happened? And when you have that kind of a conversation, and the team members like, in our remember on our team, we do to others as we want done to us. We live out the golden rule. So what we would want, if we would want our team to follow up with us and do what was asked of them, then you're supposed to be making sure that's a reality in your work, right? Like, yeah, that's true. So when you do it with that way, and you're in complete alignment with your values, and you do it from a position of genuine care about the team, the organization, and the person, and genuine care that they win and that they do succeed here. But in order to succeed, they're going to have to be like, they're going to have to act like us, and we value these things. And to the extent you don't, and you don't value those things, well, you just don't fit here. Because we don't say everybody in the world has to value what we value. We don't say that at all. Only the people who work in our team and on our company, they have to value that. And so that very important communication mechanism, that's why the values are so important, and that's why we start with them. And that's why we do a culture dump. That's why it's number one. Because every activity beyond the culture dump, every single activity in the organization, any disconnect in any of the work will always be able to be driven back to a value. And you say, hey, this value is being violated right now by this activity. And that we in this team don't do. So we need a correction to be made. And that's how you make sure that you're maintaining a supportive environment, because you're actually being transparent and very aligned with the values that you have set out for the organization to follow. And so that's why we start with step one. All right, step three. We're on to step 3 to 5. Assign books to enhance understanding. Now, this is a simultaneous one. You see simultaneous on the screen. Simultaneous means that it happens at the same time the other things that happen. Many of you already know that. But you assign books that deepen their understanding of your core values. So if you've talked about core values and you've given the nice speeches and you've had the 4 meetings, you deepen the understanding. That was a really good question that was asked by, I don't know who asked it. Karina just sent it to me. But anyways, Carlos, it's on the screen. Then you deepen the understanding of the core values, of the values of not just the core values, but the values of your organization. And I assign 2 books per month, as much as possible, 2 books per month for the first 90 days. So total at least 6 books, and then beyond that we continue reading. But anyways, for the first 90 days, you assign 2 books per month. And if the team members are good, they're going to get it done. If they're going to work through them. If they're a part of your team and they're really interested in your company and they really want to be there, they're going to spend some time doing this. And you can give them an hour at the end of their workday and say, all right, so you can have an hour to read, and then you need to finish this book in the next 2 weeks, and the next book in the next 2 weeks, and so on and so forth until the 90-day period is done. And I assign books just like this, EntreLeadership, that talk about and deepen people's understandings of specific values. And so EntreLeadership, The Go-Giver, The Ideal Team Player. I will put a list of books at the bottom of this, or in the description of this webinar, so that you maybe can have access to some of the books that I use in the event that you want to assign something similar to your team members. So Go-Giver, Go-Getter, Who Moved My Cheese, all kind of books, really cool books like that. The 1 Minute Manager, to help people deepen their understanding of what you're talking about in the values. And then after you do that, you follow up with discussions during this period. This is a lot of interaction to ensure they comprehend the material. So this happens at the same time you're doing step 1 and 2. Um, and this happens just, this is a continual relationship building process. So you don't just interview them and make them sit down and get some work done, or send them to the factory and get them engaged in the work. You actually enhance their understanding of the values and actually help them understand that they mean something to you and to the rest of your team, and that they come to life each and every day in the work. And this is key for anyone who's being onboarded into your organization, because to the extent that they can embody and truly, not the word, um, uh, soak up, that's what I'm trying to say, to truly soak up all of your values and start to demonstrate them in their behavior, they're able to win. To the extent they are not able to do that, they may be causing them to head towards the door. And so, again, you're looking for complete and total understanding and a living out of these characteristics in your organization. You want to see them bringing the values that you have in that you declare, that you say are real and true, because they should be real and true. And if they're not, again, that's a subject for a different video. Then you're able to really and deeply integrate them into your team, because everything in every area of performance, if life is normal, barring tragedy and circumstances that beyond our control and outside of the workplace, every performance or team member failure can be pointed back to and help to be clarified by our values. So they have to understand it fully and completely. And one of the ways that you do this is by assigning the books to them during this period. So 2 books a week. I'm sorry, 2 books a week. 2 books per month for the first 90 days. And if they can read the books, great. And if they can't read the books, we got a problem. We need them to make sure that they're working through the books. And you also, by the way, you should have read those books, and you should know what's in those books, so that you could actually have a conversation about what's in those books with the team member, so that you know that they read the books and they understood what it means and how you're deepening those values. There's a book, The Ideal Team Player, where it talks about being humble, hungry, and smart. And as you're working through this, if they can't understand, if they finish reading the book and they don't know what humble, hungry, smart means and the definitions of it, because they're not simple definitions that you would just normally understand them to be. They're specific to what it means to hire a great team member, the ideal team player. Then and they don't understand that, then it means they didn't read the book. So you need to make sure that they read the book, and that you know that they read the book, because you have conversations with them about the book. So that's part of your job as well. And it's all of this conversation and this interaction with this new team member, either by you as the owner, if you're a really small company, or by the leader, to make sure that these things are happening. So make sure that they have read the book, and that you have had conversations about the book, and it enhances the meaning of the core values that you've been talking about, and that they can see that connection. And you're checking up on that connection. Step 4, weekly check-ins. These happen simultaneously with the others. Again, this is a simultaneous one. The leader conducts weekly conversations to review the progress. In addition to the conversations about the books, we ask questions about the work. We ask questions about how they're integrating. We really get into, now, this would be if you've assigned a leader to help them to lead them through the 90-day probationary period, then it would be the leader doing this, not you as a business owner. So if a leader is doing this, or a colleague is doing this, then you're making sure that this is happening. Your job as leader is to make sure this actually happens, that they sit down, they have a weekly meeting with the team member to conduct conversations about questions that the team member has, problems they're facing with the material, understanding something, maybe a value that you have, need for a deeper understanding, and the challenges they're facing, maybe at work or at home, just to make sure that every possible aspect of this team member, that you give them every possible chance to win. Because your goal is to get an amazing team member through this process and launched into your organization, or weed out anyone who will not fit. And so through these weekly conversations with your team, you might find that they're like, you know what, I just really don't like the schedule. And I never knew that this was I didn't realize that this was what was going to be required, even though the description was ridiculously clear. And you were clear in the interview process. And so they're like, I just really don't like the work. I'm like, okay. That is reason enough for letting this person leave, because we want them out before they get into our company and stay here a long time, not liking the work they do. So you're looking at the team member, their role, their integration, their comprehension of the values, having the conversations on a weekly basis to make sure that you are reducing any lack of clarity about the work, about their role, about the values, about how we behave, about maybe something that you didn't like in their behavior that didn't follow the values that you have. And you're like, hey, you know, you kind of did this in that meeting, and we don't talk to each other like that here. And so in the future, I'd like, you know, make sure that you feel that we're living out this value and that you're, you know, following suit with that. Now, this happens simultaneously, week after week after week, each week for the 90-day period. Step 5, the 45-day phenomenon. The 45-day phenomenon. This is a phenomenon that I, in my research, in my long tenure as an executive, I found out that if you do all of the stuff really well, 1 through 4, and you're doing it really well, you're having your conversations, they're working through reading the books, or not, and they're integrating into the roles, they're practically checking in on time, they're doing all the follow-ups, they're making sure that they're being a contributor, they're starting to embody the core values or not. If you do all of that really well and intensively in the first 45 days, one of two things happens at 45 days. And you're like, well, why don't you leave it at 45 days and just call it the 45-day probationary period? Actually, I don't know, but it's a good question. But it's 90 days just in case. So when you do something, especially in the area of hiring, you want to get it right so much that it's worth an extra time period to make sure that they're the right fit. So in 45 days, this is a special check-in. And when you come into hiring a new team member, you need to put this day down on the calendar for checking in with that team member. If they're not directly working underneath you, as the owner, as the leader, as the boss, you need to say, all right, this person or these few people came into our company at this time. I'm going to put this on my calendar 45 days from now to schedule that I'm going to be meeting each one of these individually to talk. And this is a special check-in with the hiring leader and the team member to ensure alignment. So new hires, they can wing it for the first few weeks, but once they fully understood the core values, they understood the expectation from them. Because when you're in a conversation in those first 5 weeks and a team member says, hey, you know what, in this meeting, you acted this way and it was really unpleasant. And I just wanted to point that out to you because here in our organization, we don't do that. When you do that 2 or 3 times in that first period, and the team member or like, hey, you know, we show up 3 minutes before our shift and you didn't do that. So I would like to make sure that you know that we all do that here. And it's very important for us. And as a team member, you're demonstrating your example. So we show up at that time. When you do that 2 or 3 times on the first 5 weeks of their being in your organization, there's something in their head that clicks. Like, oh my gosh, you know what? That's awesome. These people are completely aligned with their values. Or they're like, screw this. I don't want to be held accountable like that. I just wanted a job. I didn't want any of this. I didn't want to have to really believe in the reason why the company existed. I just wanted to just kind of be here and get a paycheck from doing work, because that's where money comes from. And I got this job and I just wanted to do this work. So that happens. Like, I have seen this happen multiple times at the 45-day mark when somebody's been reminded 2 or 3 or 4 times, and it's like, probably not a good fit. And they're like, no, I don't, you know, like they haven't changed. And they're very unhappy. And you're like, okay, you're not happy, you didn't follow my instructions, probably shouldn't be here any longer. And so they get the chance to make a decision as to whether or not they're going to change or they're going to go ahead and walk out the door. So new hires, they can wing it for the first 2 weeks, but once they're fully understanding the expectations, this really does truly become a make or break moment. So the 45-day phenomenon is that, and I would caution every leader to pay very, very special attention at the 45-day mark and make sure that you check in and that you very, very intentionally stop and take a few moments to talk with the leader, and then another few moments to sit down with the new team member individually and with their leader if necessary, and their section leader and their trainer, to make sure that you're having that meeting and understanding a comprehensive understanding of this person and their integration into our work. The hiring leader needs to meet with the new hire to identify and address any issues. And your job in this meeting is in this specific moment is to again reinforce values, required behaviors for success on the team, and offer encouragement, because it's likely going to be really heavy at this point. The team, if the team member comes to like, gosh, there's so much to learn, and this is, this system and that system is just really challenging. I'm interested in this, but it is challenging. This is a stage where you want to reinforce encouragement, and you offer that encouragement because it is challenging coming into a new team, a new culture, especially a culture that actually aligns with their values and lives them out and actually holds people accountable when they don't follow them. They're not just plastered on their walls, but they're actually living them out, and people are being held accountable daily for this stuff. It's a big deal. A lot of people don't work at companies like that, but it's one of the most powerful ways to unify and cause your team to be successful and give them most likely chance to succeed over time. So any great leader must have this in their company to create a powerful and unified culture. And so at this stage, you offer encouragement, you reinforce the values. You're just like, what? I know it's tough. I've been there too, and you want to make sure that you resonate with them. And in our company, where the value, you can tell a couple of stories. I'm a storyteller. If you can tell, I'm a storyteller. At times I talk about, in our company, we have the value never giving up. And the reason that value is so crystal clear is because this situation happened and we didn't give up, and out of it, there was an incredible result. And because we didn't give up, actually, the company itself exists today, because there were many times during the process that we really thought about it. We really felt like giving up, but we didn't. And here we are today with an incredible team that loves what they do, that cares about each team member, that embodies these core values and pushes forward to an incredible future of this vision. So this is, I can definitely resonate. This is a challenging time, but you're doing an awesome job. We love what we're seeing, and you're starting to embody the values. I know there's some conversations here and there with your team members where it was kind of like, I didn't realize that we really had to live that, but the values. But you're doing a great job, and so I just want to let you know, the integration is going well. We're liking what we're seeing, or you could be having the other conversation of like, what, your leader mentioned multiple times that you were supposed to do this and you haven't done that, and I would just like to really understand why. And because remember, this is the 90-day probation period, and this can go both ways. So that's a really important. This step 5 is a really important step, because it gives you that opportunity to check in with the team member and to really dig in. Are they supposed to be here, or are they not? At the 45-day mark, all of the facade is gone. It's worn off. The newness is worn off, and they really start to understand the value. The values actually mean something. The work is hard, and they're a part of an incredible team that they can either get in and be like, or not integrate into, and go find a different job. All right, so step number 6. This is obviously the most happy part of this whole process, because it means you as a leader have succeeded. You've done a great job. You have made sure that the team member is completely embodying all of your values, and they are bringing it. They are. They're they're being they're just living out the values. They are uh, being contributor. They are uh, killing it in their work and learning all the things they have to learn. And they've been here for 90 days, so they've been here way longer than the 45-day phenomenon. And now it's time to celebrate. So you have the meeting, and in the meeting, you acknowledge the team member, bring him up before everyone. It's like, hey, so and so just made it through the 45-day probationary period. Yeah, you celebrate that. You clap and do some cheesy celebration. And the more cheese, the better. Be cheesy. That's one thing you need to learn as a leader. If you're not cheesy, learn to be cheesy and to celebrate. So celebrate the 90-day graduation period. Be cheesy. Acknowledges the team collective effort in making sure that person integrated. Everybody cheers. Everybody's excited. And then if your team member, if the referral bonus for your team, and I talked about this in the hiring video, but if you did the referral bonus and one of your team members actually referred this person, they actually got hired, you paid out in cash at that meeting. And you counted out with the whole team in front of the team, like 1, 2, 3, however much you're paying for your team members for new hires, you pay that to this new team member. And you're like, whoa, you celebrate, and it's a really charged up meeting. It is so much fun, and it's exciting, and you're excited. The team member's excited. They go home and tell their spouse about it. They're pumped. They're like, yeah, this is awesome. And the team member has been fully integrated into your organization. A team member is fully on board when they completely embody the company values. They're fully integrated and are actively contributing alongside their team members. This is when a team member is rocking it. This is when this is when your hiring process for this individual is done. The 90-day period is done. You've had an amazing celebration, and they're fully onboarded, completely embodying the company values, fully integrated, and actively contributing in the work alongside their team. And their team is in unity with them, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is working. This is great. We're moving forward together. All right. After this, then what? Then what do? We move in to the weekly one-on-one rhythm, and that's covered in another video to maintain the progress that you've made in the 90-day period. And so if it sounds like a lot of work, it is. It's a ton of work. That is the work of an executive leader in an organization. That is the work of the top level leadership in your organization as you work through. If you're small, if you're not a big corporation, a huge team with hundreds of team members, this is the work that you do in order to build a rock star team. And it really does work. I'm Jason Ellinger, and I have more. I'm the CEO of Taika Translations, and I've had a lot of team members over these many years. Right now, we have it's about 16 team members working on my specific team, and lots of other people that work with us around the world doing different projects. And so, it really makes a big difference in your life if you do this part of your organization well, and it works for in-person and virtual team members. And so I hope that this was insightful. I hope that you take this and you recognize that it's a huge responsibility, at the same time that you can do it and you can learn to do it, and that this webinar today gave you some new insight or some deeper understanding of what it takes to truly hire well, to get all the way to the end of the hiring process and be jazzed up, be freaking excited because you did an amazing job hiring a great team member. So many people, they hire people and they're like, man, I'm not really sure I should have hired that person. If you have that feeling, it means there's still more work to do in the area of hiring, in the area of onboarding, in the area of communicating your values, in the area of following up with them. And again, that's why I do these videos, to help people work through that frustrating process and to work through being able to build amazing team members and amazing companies. Because ultimately, when you give yourself that advantage of having an excellent team investing day after day in the work that you do that really cares, that is one of the biggest security factors that you have in being able to accomplish your dream. If your dream was to open a cool boutique company, or build a big company, and you went about it, but you thought that, you just get into business and you sell something and that's it, pretty much, and until you just get found by someone, and then you continue growing. It's about, you'll quickly find out that it's way more than that, and it takes, I think, a huge team, lifting huge weights and carrying them for a really long time, creating the momentum that causes your organization to ultimately prosper in a really powerful and very meaningful way. And when you see team members embody those core values that you have for your organization, that you believe is required to win over time, and you actually uh, see them sacrifice, carry them out, and live them daily, it is the greatest honor of anyone's life, I think, to work with a team that embodies the values that make them successful and truly work together in one unified pack towards a powerful vision and a goal. And that's one of the most meaningful moments of your life that you can have as an entrepreneur. So I've had that many times in my history, and each time it's just like it brings a tear to my eye. I'm like, that's just that's superhuman. There's just something incredible about that event. And so I would just encourage you. It's worth it. It's worth doing this really well. It's worth learning how to do it and making the sacrifices as a leader necessary to become better in this area of 90-day hire. So, real quick, I want to make sure I've addressed all of the comments. Yeah. Last word of encouragement. Um, learning's hard. Learning, if you want to grow, you're going to have to learn, and that's going to be painful. You want to grow muscle, you're going to have to lift heavier weights, and that's going to be very hard. You're going to be um, lifting things that you didn't realize you needed to lift. You simply were not aware. You thought that it required this much work. In reality, it required that. I'm going to go way above the screen here. That much work, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that." But you learned that that was the requirement, and you commit to the process of doing it. And I acknowledge that the learning part is difficult, and the journey will be hard. But when you do it intentionally over time, and you commit to the set of values and to your dream, and to making that a reality, and bringing other people into that dream, and they start helping make your dream and also their dream become a reality, and along the journey, it is so worth it. And the fact that you're already searching for a solution to become better makes you an incredible leader, because so many leaders, they don't watch content like this, they don't learn this process, they don't care enough to carry out this part of the process with such excellence, intensity, and consistency, that they just bring another person in and churn another one out. People call it churn. I heard one company the other day said, "I've got 20% churn," and I was like, "What churn?" It's like, "Yeah, that's my team members, coming in and out because we're just filing them through." And I was like, that's terrible. And you call that churn because people are not that valuable to you, and the people are what make any of this possible. And your job is to make sure you get the right ones on your team, so you stop screwing up and creating churn by hiring the wrong people and letting them in your organization. Don't create churn. Create awesome team members that kill it, that bring it, that are passionate. And you can do that as a leader if you learn. And attending and learning stuff just like this is a part of that journey. So I just want to encourage you that because you were willing to sit through this video and listen to these things and learn, it's helped you just to have a little bit more insight about what it takes to become a great leader and integrate someone truly into your organization, serving them well, serving your organization well, and serving your team at the highest level. So it requires time. After you've learned, after you started to practice, then it requires time. You throw the ingredients together, and then you got to cook them. And that cooking, depending on the result, depending on the dish, depending on the size, depending on what you're making, it takes time. So I've given you some of the ingredients today. Now cook them. Put them in the pot and start working them. Make them work in your organization and bring your team to life. And you will see results in your organization that you never realized were possible. So again, my name is Jason Ellinger. I'm the CEO of Type Translations and been in entrepreneurship for over 15 years. And I do this to help people win. And so please like and subscribe to our channels. I put out a video every Wednesday. And today it was at 8 Eastern, but it's normally at 9:30 Eastern on Wednesday. I'm planning to do it at 9:30 Eastern next week on Wednesday. And I will see you in the next one.